振兴、推动人类社会进步的重要责任。做睦邻友好的朋友，相互成就的伙伴，实现龙象共舞，应当是中印双方的正确选择。
The world today is swept by one-centric transformations. The international situation is both fluid and chaotic. China and India are two ancient civilizations in the East. We are the world's two most populous countries, and we are also important members of the global South. We both shoulder the historical responsibility of improving the well-being of our two peoples, promoting the solidarity and rejuvenation of developing countries, and propelling the progress of human society. It is the right choice for both sides to be friends who have good neighborly and amicable ties, partners who enable each other's success, and to have the dragon and the elephant dance together.
今年是中印建交70周年，双方要坚持从战略高度和长远角度看待和处理中印关系，推动两国关系持续健康稳定发展。双方还要共同展现历史担当，坚持多边原则，携手推动世界多极化和国际关系民主化，为维护亚洲乃至世界和平和繁荣做出应有的贡献。
This year marks the 75th anniversary of China-India diplomatic ties. Both sides need to approach and handle our relationship from a strategic height and long-term perspective, so as to realize the sustained, sound and steady development of our bilateral ties. We must also step up to our historic responsibility to uphold multilateralism, work together to bring about a multipolar world and more democracy in international relations, and to make our due contributions to peace and prosperity in Asia and around the world.
Okay, it is diplomacy. It's not the be all and end all. Okay, what President Xi has just said, but it is a tone and tenor. I'll have to call it very positive. Let's see how. Let me put it into context. China sees the world, and it sees Asia, and it sees itself as the civilizational power of Asia. It does not look at India as another civilizational power. It sees it in competition with the United States. So, for Xi Jinping to come and have said that both of us have a historical responsibility, that we are both pillars of strength in the global order is, I won't say shocking or complete upturning of how China views the world, but at least it's an indication that they are being far more respectful to India's position in the world than perhaps they perhaps think or are themselves convinced, and that itself is a statement. So, it's a very respectful statement. He's also mentioned that the international situation is under flux. We all know what that is referring to. He has recognized India as a civilizational nation. Like I've told you, while this is a fact that India is a civilizational nation with a history, if not as old, probably older than that is recorded in China, but for the Chinese to recognize India's civilizational place in the world is not something they do without a pinch of salt. So, for having to set that in those very brief opening remarks is indicative that at least they are now positioning that we are not, we don't probably consider you equals in the back of our minds, but we are willing to at least more respectfully treat you as partners and not some secondary powers that we will eventually crush after we've dealt with the Americans. So, the tone and tenor is again, I don't want to say remarkable, I don't want to overplay it. So, I am being very careful. The tone and tenor is recognizing that India has a historic, geopolitical, strategic and civilizational role to play in the world. And that is also not the most understated thing that a Xi Jinping could have said. It is potent because it impacts China's view on India, how they perceive, examine and digest when they look at the south, across the Tibetan Massif, across the Himalayas into India. Do they look at you as a competitor? Do they look at you as a threat? Do they look at you as an irritation, or do they look at you as a partner with whom they can have a respectful association despite the existential issues that exist? The fact that we are the world's most two populous nations is a statement of fact. I don't think there is something substantive that we can have a conversation around in on that. Let's take an opportunity. Can we listen to both the statements again, please? First PM Modi, then President Xi. Let's listen to both of them again, please, and then I'll come back to my guests.
के बाद शांति और स्थिरता का माहौल बना हुआ है। हमारे स्पेशल रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स के बीच बॉर्डर मैनेजमेंट के संबंध में सहमति बनी। कैलाश मानसरोवर यात्रा फिर से शुरू की। दोनों देशों के बीच डायरेक्ट फ्लाइट भी फिर से शुरू की जा रही है। हमारे सहयोग से दोनों देशों के 2.8 बिलियन लोगों के हित जुड़े हुए हैं। इससे पूरी मानवता के कल्याण का मार्ग भी प्रशस्त होगा। परस्पर विश्वास, सम्मान और संवेदनशीलता के आधार पर हम अपने संबंधों को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध हैं। एक्सेलेंसी, चीन द्वारा एफसीओ की सफल अध्यक्षता के लिए मैं आपको बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। एक बार फिर चीन यात्रा के निमंत्रण के लिए और आज की हमारी बैठक के लिए आपका हार्दिक धन्यवाद।
两国交往合作不断取得新进。
Mr. Prime Minister, it's a great pleasure for me to meet you again this time in Tianjin. Welcome to come to China for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Tianjin Summit. Last year, you and I had a successful meeting in Japan, and the China-India relationship had reset and started anew. The two sides have illicitly implemented the important consensus we have agreed, and the bilateral exchanges and cooperation have since made new progress.
当前，世界百年变局加速演进。 国际形势变乱交织，中国和印度是两大东方文明古国，是世界上人口最多的两个国家，也是全球南方重要成员，肩负着造福我国人民、促进发展中国家团结振兴、推动人类社会进步的重要责任。 做睦邻友好的朋友，相互成就的伙伴，实现龙象共舞，应当是中印双方的正确选择。
The world today is swept by once-in-a-century transformations. The international situation is both fluid and chaotic. China and India are two ancient civilizations in the East. We are the world's two most populous countries, and we are also important members of the global South. We both shoulder the historical responsibility of improving the well-being of our two peoples, promoting the solidarity and rejuvenation of developing countries, and promoting the progress of human society. It is the right choice for both sides to be friends who have good neighborly and amicable ties, partners who enable each other's success, and to have the dragon and the elephant dance together.
今年是中印建交70周年，双方要坚持从战略高度和长远角度看待和处理中印关系，推动两国关系持续健康稳定发展。双方还要共同展现历史担当，坚持多边原则，携手推动世界多极化和国际关系民主化，为维护亚洲乃至世界和平和繁荣做出应有的贡献。
This year marks the 75th anniversary of China-India diplomatic ties. Both sides need to approach and handle our relationship from a strategic height and long-term perspective, so as to realize the sustained, sound and steady development of our bilateral ties. We must also step up to our historic responsibility to uphold multilateralism, work together to bring about a multipolar world and more
两国交往合作不断取得新进。
Okay, I've been listening as intently as I'm sure all of you have been, and we've got the subtext of it. So there are two important things, and I want to point this out. He has said that the global situation is both fluid and chaotic. Okay, we all know what that is referring to. So clearly that puts the subtext. Now I just wanted to underline a few things. Xi Jinping does not speak in front of cameras and in public as often as a Narendra Modi would. So the fact that he knows that this is in front of a camera, and this would be as part of a previous agreement that our opening statements will be in front of cameras. So what he is saying is being heard and being taken very seriously, you can well imagine, by all the people around him, up and down the chain of command in China, from the Chinese industry to the Chinese media to the Chinese forces. Now what he is saying, and I like I said, I don't want to underplay this or overplay this, but the Chinese view, if you read Xi Jinping's own thoughts, the Chinese view is that they are the ancient historical civilization returning to their place at the fulcrum of the world, the beacon of light on the world. For Xi Jinping to say that we are the two Asian ancient civilization is, I won't say undermining or undercutting or resetting, but at least acknowledging that in their own ideology of how they view the world, India has a rightful place as an ancient civilization, and I can't tell you how obsessive compulsive the Chinese are about it. We are proud of our ancient civilization. The Chinese are OCD about their ancient civilization. And their entire world view is being focused on the return of China at the fulcrum of the world. Ours is also about our renaissance, but we are dealing with more practical matters as well. They have an ideological basis. So for him to say two ancient civilizations, while it might not be the most biggest backflip, it is definitely a respectful readjustment, and that for sure is designed to tell the Indians that we respect you more and we accept your place in Asia, where before forever and ever they have almost rejected India has a role to play in Asia. For them, India's role to play in Asia is simply to follow what the Chinese are doing. So this is not a small deal. Okay. Now he's gone on to say that it is our historical responsibility to provide stability, to continue this association, to have an amicable and friendly and neighborly conversation. So, I think we have got enough here, and now we are going to write it down word by word, because I do not want to lose anything in translation, exactly how the Chinese translator has translated it, and we are going to put this out on your screens, so you can follow along with this. And let me go back to General Dwivedi. So, General Dwivedi, now that I have more carefully reheard and I wanted to rehear what PM Modi has said, he has not said that we are hopeful of peace and stability on the border. He has said there is peace and stability on the border. I've reheard it, so I can be absolutely sure, and that our special envoys, special representatives are in agreement, which would seem to suggest that there is no push and shove of relevance left, that it concerns the senior hierarchy, which is advising him, I am sure, right before this meeting, of what all the pending issues are. I am sure the local commanders have 100 meters here and 200 meters here issues, but the hierarchy does not seem to have a problem or a long standing issue that requires resolution. That is a big statement, because what that is doing is that is underlining and saying the border dispute is peaceful and stable. Now, we can put it aside and move on. Now, you heard what Xi Jinping has also said. Like I said, I do not want to overblow it either, but given the Chinese worldview, which you have experienced firsthand, it is not easy for them to recognize anybody other than themselves as an ancient civilization with a place, historical place in the world.
Well, Bishop, 2 points I will answer very precisely. First and foremost, yes, the border is stable. The line of actual control is stable. After 2022, after Tuang instance, there have been no major instances. So, therefore, as far as disengagement is concerned, that process is in place. The second point is de-escalation. That will come about later, and de-induction may not happen anytime soon. So, Prime Minister Modi is, I think, absolutely dot on that as far as LAC is concerned, currently is in state of stability, but there is sensitivity. Coming to President Xi Jinping's statement about civilization, when I was in Beijing, I heard this, and they have always associated us as an old civilization, but today we need to see in a different context, and that is a retort to America, which is who are going to celebrate the 250th anniversary next year, to show them that what old civilization are all about. So therefore, they bracket us along with them as ancient civilization. No doubt about it. It has been reiterated, but Chinese always accept. They have been saying that we have had good relations for 2 millenniums. Only in the last half a century, the issues have been tense or not so amiable. Point number 2, as President Xi Jinping, he wants to now galvanize his alternate answer to the Western-driven, world order. He wants to now have Russia, possibly India, if not aligned, but not adversarial, because Xi Jinping realized that India as an adversary will definitely impact their progress and prosperity. So at least have a friendly neighbor who is not hostile.
Okay, all right. Okay, I just want to draw some lines. Okay, I draw some lines because anybody who's watching us knows that we have been extremely critical, okay, of the Chinese worldview, the Chinese approach during COVID, post-COVID, the secrecy, what happened in Galwan, in which 57 Indians were killed. And there's been good reason why being very critical. So if there is some positivity and change, excellent. But I'll, like to measure it that the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Are we somehow suddenly suggesting that we can't trust the Americans, but we can trust the Chinese? Absolutely not. Okay. I would judge the action, not the words. I have zero trust, unfortunately now, in anyone. Okay. There is no trust to be applied in Washington, because they will flip-flop, backstab and curse you tomorrow morning before you wake up. And there is certainly no absolute trust that could be ever put on the Chinese. I am taking that on a confluence of interest, which is the only thing which we can have a respectful trust on, because if the interest is the same, then it makes sense. If the interest is not the same, then it's every country for itself, which is how realpolitik works. It is what it is. Vijay Kranti, come in on this because what PM Modi is clearly stating that we do not need to get trapped in border conversations because the border is peaceful and stable, and he said it with the clear intent. He has discussed the border, not Xi Jinping, which tells you their worldviews. India's point of view is the border is the problem. We can't keep doing trade without the border being solved. The Chinese keep saying, forget the border, forget the border. The reason they keep saying forget the border because they follow the policy of incremental land grab. That you pretend everything is fine, but you come 100 meters, 200 meters, 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer, you keep doing it for 30 years, eventually you occupy the whole space. So, it is a Chinese stratagem to ignore it. So, we understand all of this. So, nobody is now saying let's trust the Chinese and let's in fact withdraw all the troops from the border and send in the tourists to Pangong Lake. But what do you make of the tone and tenor of what has been discussed and what has been publicly read out in these statements?
One thing, very basic thing, I would say that what Modi has spoken, it is in the direction of what the nation is expecting from him, to come back with something minimum takeaways, and especially in the field like trade, commerce, politics, and on the military issues, boundary issues. So we will judge whatever he has spoken on his success of how big bag he will return with, because there are some issues. For example, if he comes back with an assurance that there will be, whether there is de-escalation or not, but there will be peace on the border, so that the rest of India can focus on what it is aimed at. Second is, if Modi comes back with the supply chain which has broken, not only America broke it, even China has broken it in retaliation. And in that retaliation, India is also suffering, whether it was rare earth magnets, whether it was fertilizers or tunnel boring machines. So Modi's success will depend on, when he comes back, how much he brings back these things back on the rails. And then, of course, India will need a kind of balance. What Trump has created, the panic and disorder. China, it is for China now to show to the world that it is there to fill that gap.